Good.
Okay. Greetings from the Holy Apple. We're on the 18th day, Chai, Tevet 5776. First of all, I just wanted to thank a few good Jews out there that put up, from time to time, put up the classes that we have here and get them out so other people could be exposed and hear, hopefully, words of truth like tomerdvora.com and Torah Revolution and a few others have a lot of merit out there. Also an open invitation, God willing, next week will be the 25th of Tevet. It's the day that the Talmud states that at one time when we had something called Megillat Tanit, it was a Jewish holiday. It was a national holiday for the Jewish people. It's called the day of Har Grizim. So God willing, good weather next week, we'll be up there on the on Mount Grizim for the special occasion, explaining exactly what is the holiday of the 25th day of Tevet. What does it have to do with the Samaritans up on Mount Grizim? Okay, today the headline of our Shiur, of our class, is going to be the GSS, the General Security Service of Israel, pulling out the bunny, pulling that bunny out of the hat. Okay, we had a situation in Israel for about a week and a half or so, where the tide was really changing. As far as we talked about last week, talk about what's going on, the torture that's happening in the Holy Land, although not new, but kind of it's come back to us here. And things were, for the first time, kind of looking bad. The GSS were kind of looking bad. People were beginning to be persuaded that real terrible things were happening in the interrogations of these kids. So they were looking bad, and they needed to find a bunny to pull out of the hat. So, lo and behold, pew, pull it out. What do they have? It's in the form of a movie of a wedding. It's a wedding some weeks ago, and all of a sudden, magic! They pull that video out, and now they've succeeded in turning the tide. And they've turned the tide so much. In fact, when I was driving here, when I was hitching here actually, so I was in someone's car, so unfortunately I had to listen to the news that he turned on at 11 o'clock. And the first story was about the youths that were arrested for the arson in the village of Duma. The second story was about a person that was in that wedding that was released. And only afterwards, the third story was a story about a Jew that was stabbed some weeks ago in the holy city of Hebron, and today he passed away from his wounds. So very interesting how a story of the wedding, some guy being arrested for dancing around with a play gun, that came before a person being murdered in the land of Israel. And to me, it's very clear that that speaks volumes to understand what the priorities are here in the land of Israel. It's much, much more important for them, for the evil regime, to have this story, Duma, and also the story of the wedding. It's more important to have that on the front burner than other minor stories like Jews being killed. Okay, just wanted to read a couple of details about the torture that these boys have been going through. Just a few different things that have been compiled. I'm not reading the whole gory list because I don't want people to have to, to vomit here. So I'm just going to list a couple of things. There were kicks. Okay, the GSS were kicking suspects in what we'll call a sensitive area over and over again, till those areas became numb. There were also sexual attacks during the interrogation, which means people putting their hands where they're not supposed to, kind of like the TSA. Kicks in people's stomachs every couple of minutes. Kicked in your stomach, a couple of minutes. People were placed on a small frame of a bed. I took a frame of a bed, and no mattress, of course, and put on the frame, and then they were turned. They were, of course, chained to the bed, hands and feet, and then they were turned upside down. And if that's not bad enough, if you're like upside down, I mean, maybe if you're on a roller coaster for a second, it goes upside down, you could somehow strive through the roller coaster ride. But here, not only were they upside down for long periods of time, but also their various limbs, arms, legs, etc., were pulled by the interrogators of the very brave GSS. Another one is that various bandages were put on the boys' hands and feet, and after the bandages were put on, handcuffs were put on extremely tight. The reason why the bandages were put on first, in order to eliminate any kind of evidence, because if you would do that to a person's hand, of course handcuffs have these kinds of like little teeth in them, and you would be, you could see the evidence, so they didn't want the courts, the judges, to see any of the evidence, so they put on these bandages, you might call it an ace bandage, and then afterwards they put on extremely painful. Let me just tell you, I don't know how many of you out there have any experience with this, but a couple of times I've been in that situation. In fact, right here where I'm standing right today, there were some years ago they destroyed this shul that we're giving the class in. This shul was destroyed by the army, by the government, etc. And there I was arrested, and they put on cuffs. Unbelievable. I mean, just like these were plastic, those plastic cuffs. They're just put on. I was like really, really in pain. There was a rabbi of the police that was in the army, in the police van with me, and I asked him to please make it a little bit, loosen it up a little bit. This guy's a rabbi. I know where he lives. I know who he is. And he refused to do that. And I was in unbelievable. I can't even. I'm just bring it back to me right now. The excruciating pain. It's unexplainable. I mean, you can't even. There's no way to describe it. So this happened to me a couple of times where they on purpose put on the cuffs. So once again, I was maybe like a half hour till I was brought to the police station from here. So try to get a little bit of feeling what's going on over here. At least a couple of the boys were not allowed to light Hanukkah candles. It was Hanukkah during the time that they were in. Not allowed to light Hanukkah candles. Ramming boys' heads into the wall, taking a person's head and like boom, like right into the wall. And hours of being handcuffed, feet and arms to chairs behind your back, etc. This is such serious stuff that the Gemara says in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 93. This is an unbelievable Torah. We know that Jewish heroes Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They were in the time of the destruction of the first temple, and they were in Babylonia, and the wicked king Nebuchadnezzar had decreed for Jews to bow down. There's a dispute in the Torah whether it was to an idol or whether it was to some kind of monument to honor the king. Different opinions. Some say that he had two. One was idol worshipping, and the other one was a monument to his glory of him. But anyways, the Talmud tells us an interesting point. It says that Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, the reason why they agreed to jump in the fire rather than to bow down to this either monument or to this idol worshipping is because of the fact that they knew that as soon as they go into the fire they would be instantly killed. And the Talmud tells us that if they would have been tortured, they would have not agreed. So of course, if it was literally idol worshipping, of course they would agree to be, because you don't have a choice. It's one of the 3 prohibitions that you have to give your life for. So it shows us that even to honor the monument of the king, they were not willing to do, but on condition that they would be killed instantly. If they were going to be tortured, they would have bowed down to the monument, because they could not. That is much, much worse than being killed instantly. So just to try to get proportion of what we're dealing with here, that great heroes of the Jewish people, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, would not have been able to stand up to this torture. And 2,000 years or so later, it's happening right in the Holy Land, being tortured. A reminder also, I think we brought it last week, but it bears to be repeated, that a week and a half ago, in a demonstration in Ramot, in a suburb of outside of Jerusalem, there was a demonstration. About 1,000 people showed up, and the Channel 7 interviewed the former prisoner of Zion, Rabbi Yosef Mendelevich, and they asked him, of course, Yosef, Rabbi Mendelevich, of course you're familiar with these kinds of tactics of torturing, because you were by the KGB. And then he looks them straight in the face and says, no, not at all, because we were not tortured when we were being interrogated by the KGB. So think about these points. Okay, last week we spoke about the fact that the slogan of this campaign to try to stop the torture and to investigate what has happened to our boys. We talked about the Gemara in the tractate of Beitzah 32, which is interesting because 32 is heart, lev. That page is easy to remember because it says that a person that does not have mercy, does not have a heart, he's not from the Jewish people. He is from the Erev Rav, the multitudes. After the class, I left here to learn in yeshiva, and I found the following gem, precious words of Torah. This is by the Chida of Chaim Yosef David Azulai. In his books, he has many books. He has a book called Dvarim Achadim. This is part 1. There's 2 parts to it, and it's the 16th words of Torah, 16th subject of Torah. Listen closely to his words, are amazing to understand how a Jew is supposed to act. It says the following. If a person, he's talking about this paragraph in the Talmud that we spoke about last week. Okay? Here's what he says. If a person is merciful to others, then he's using this natural characteristic trait that God has implanted in the Jewish people. We know that there are three natural characteristic traits that are present amongst the Jew. It's called gever, right? In Hebrew, modern day in Hebrew, people call each other gever, or if you're like a brave person, they call you gever. What is the true meaning? It's not somebody that has somebody that's biceps, somebody that's lifting, they pumping iron. That's not a gever. In Judaism, it's gomel chasadim, does tremendous acts of kindness. That's the gimel. Bet is baishan. He's a person that's shy. He's not in your face. Modest person. And Rahman, he's a merciful person. That's a gever. So if you take the first letter of Gomel Chasadim, Baishan and Rahman, we come to the word gever. And that's a true brave person. So Hashem has given us these natural characteristic traits. Now don't get me wrong, a person can lose those traits. Because as we say, if you don't use it, you lose it. So therefore, if a person's utilizing this natural trait and doing acts of kindness, everything is okay. Everything is considered to be fixed. It's a tikkun. And right in the next sentence, this is the beauty of Judaism. Beauty of Judaism is, we're not love, flowers, flower children, love. We are a balance. We stand on two legs. One is a leg of love, and the other is a different. What's the other leg? And then in the same sentence, the Chida says, but do not have mercy on the wicked. As it says in the Torah, it says those that have mercy on the wicked are cruel. Just as we see with King Shmuel. The King Shmuel, he took the king of Amalek. His name was Agag, and he cut him into pieces and fed the meat of the body to the birds. And we also see, the Chida goes on, we see that King David stood out with his tremendous vengeance that he did amongst the nation, that he carried out against the nations of the world. Because we need to use our characteristic traits as Hashem is prescribed, not what I have a leaning. I might have a leaning to, just to be a nice guy all the time, not to put my foot down. Or I might have a leaning to be a cruel kind of person. That doesn't mean that we're people that follow the Torah, follow Hashem. It just means we follow our own inclination. So the beauty of Judaism is mixing it up. It's the 1-2 punch that's coming at you. It's not just the right, which represents kindness. It's also the left, which represents judgment, which represents strength. That's the beauty of Judaism. It's to be balanced. The new balance. And so therefore, a person, he concludes, the Chida, a person must on one hand be cruel to the wicked. Doesn't say to be mean. It says to be cruel to the wicked, and he must have mercy on poor people and those that are in need of our help, as it says in the tractate of Beitzah. Okay, now hold on, put on a seatbelt here, we're going for a spin. It says in the Torah, which is a book of Jewish law, Halacha, it says in Yoradea 217, the 40th paragraph. Once again, Yoradea 217, that's paragraph 200, that's the 217th paragraph, and the 40th halacha. It says the following. Let's say there's a person who throws out a vow or an oath. A person says, I swear, I promise, I swear that I will not receive any benefit. Right now, for the next week, I refuse to receive any benefit from the children, okay, from Abraham, the children of Abraham. So what happens for the next week? Right, he took upon himself an oath that he's not allowed to receive any kind of benefit. So the halacha says that if you took upon yourself such an oath, it's forbidden to have any pleasure or receive any benefit from a Jew, but not only a Jew, also from converts, because converts are people that descend from Abraham. Why is Abraham called Abraham? Av Hamon Goyim. He's the father of all nations. He is the mentor of all the converts. He is the father of all converts for all generations. So if you said, I accept upon myself not to receive any benefit from the children of Abraham, you're not allowed to receive benefit from the Jewish people, and also not allowed to receive any benefit from converts. The Yehuda goes on and says that we see in the portion of Naso in Bamidbar Rabbah on the eighth paragraph, it says that the Givonim were in the time of Joshua, and they pulled a fast one, pulled the wool over the eyes of the Jewish people. They dressed up as if they're coming from a faraway land, and Joshua accepted them as converts, and they later on it was found out, etc. And it says in the Torah that the Givonim, people from Givon, these people, they are not from the Jewish people. And therefore, it's not a person should not involve himself with this group called the Givonim. These people from Givon that played a trick on Joshua and the Jewish people, even though they were accepted as converts. The Chazal tell us, the rabbis tell us, that their feet did not stand on Mount Sinai. And they're still considered to be, even though they're Jews, because we accepted them, they're still considered to be Canaanites, because their feet did not stand on Mount Sinai. And therefore, now we understand what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara says that a person who does not have mercy on other Jews is not a descendant of Abraham. Why didn't it just say he's not Jewish? Why does it say he's not a descendant of, it says specifically he's not a descendant of Abraham, where it should have just said he's not Jewish? So the Yehuda says, these Jews of Babylonia that do not have mercy on their fellow Jews, as we spoke about the case last week, they are below the converts, because the converts, they stood at Mount Sinai. We know that all the people that are converts, they were really on Mount Sinai. So what happened over a couple of thousands of years? Every person, a lot of people got lost on the way. Now when they come back, it's not that we have like a new person here. He's not a new person. He's been with us the whole time. He was with us on Mount Sinai. Unfortunately, through assimilation, etc., he got lost to the Jewish people, and now he's back. So converts stood on Mount Sinai. Converts are considered to be descendants of Abraham. But these people, these Jews, who we said that they're not Jews, they're Erev Rav, that do not have mercy on the Jewish people. These people are on the bottom of the totem pole. They're on the bottom because they did not stand on Mount Sinai. Once again, get it clear. Even though Moses accepted the multitudes in Egypt without consulting God first, he accepted, there's a dispute on how many. Some say 2 million, some say 3 million of these multitudes, of these converts. He did not consult God. And this has caused us tremendous tragedy throughout all the generations. In fact, as we soon shall see, the leaders of the generation before the coming of the Messiah, etc., will be from the Erev Rav. And they, from the time of the desert, they were the ones that instigated most of the sins that you see that happened during the time of the 40 years of wandering in the desert, were instigated by these multitudes of nations that joined the Jewish people in Egypt and were accepted by Moses. So these people, they did not stand on Mount Sinai. Hey? How could that be? We said that they left with the Jewish people. They left Egypt with the Jewish people. And the Torah was given 50 days later. We know the connection between Passover and the holiday of Shavuot when we received the Torah. So what do you mean they're not standing there? We'll get to that in a minute. And therefore, the people, the Erev Rav, are not considered to be descendants of Abraham, and therefore, because of that, they do not have mercy on the Jewish people, and therefore they are on the bottom of the totem pole. Where, as far as the Jewish people are concerned, they are on the bottom of the totem pole. Now, the Zohar writes, an unbelievable Zohar. He writes in the portion of the week called Naso, which we quoted. Not from the Zohar, but we quoted from the Bamidbar Rabbah, talking about how the Givonim are not considered to be from Israel, not considered to be, even though they are converts, they're still considered to be Canaanites. So we have here on page 125 in the Zohar Kadosh, hold on, put on a seatbelt, unbelievable Torah. We know that that in order to accept the Torah, there were many, many different places where Jews stood, depending on what level, spiritual level you were. Moses was in a separate place. Aaron was in a separate place. Joshua. There were many, many places that Jews stood. For example, today you go to a basketball game or a baseball game, there's the cheap seats, you know, sit up in the bleachers or something, and then there's season tickets. So Moses and those great people, they had season tickets. But within season tickets, you could be on the 100th row or you could be on the first row. So there's all these kinds of mechitzot. There's all kinds of levels that were present in Mount Sinai. We didn't stand together. We stood in different places depending on who you were, what your spiritual level was. So, there's the Am Haaretz. The Am Haaretz are the ignorant. They are people that, for whatever reason, they did not merit in learning Torah. They are ignorant of Torah. So what does it say? They stood on the bottom of the mountain. They stood on the bottom of the mountain. Why did they stay on the bottom of the mountain? Because we know that the Talmud tells us that Hashem, so to speak, lifted up the mountain and above the heads of the Jewish people. And here the Zohar is saying that it's not all of the Jewish people. It was these people that were not learned. They had the mountain above their heads and they were on the bottom. And God tells to them the following. Listen. What you have to do if you want to stay alive, staying alive. If you want to stay alive, then you're going to have to, just like you see, there's a mountain above you, you have to find yourself Talmidei Chachamim. You have to find yourself rabbis, spiritual guide, spiritual counselors, to connect yourselves with them. Because if not, you're dead. This mountain is on your head. If you don't accept spiritual guidance, you're finished. So it's kind of like a seesaw over here. It's literally speaking, if they don't connect themselves, if they don't place themselves under the auspices of Talmidei Chachamim, of great spiritual leaders and mentors, they're going to be destroyed, literally. Spiritually destroyed. And of course we have this mashal, an example of the mountain being held up above the Jewish people's heads, which we're talking about. It's not all the Jews, it was the people that were ignorant. So therefore, this is their way out. And it says, if they want to come back to Eretz Yisrael for the redemption, they will have to find themselves spiritual guidance in order to come back, or else they'll be destroyed. They'll be left. They'll be left somewhere assimilated outside the land of Israel. Now, listen to this. Now it says, the Zohar says, and how about the Erev Rav, these multitudes of nations? Where were they standing? What was their position during the time that God gave the Torah on Mount Sinai? It says by them, a verse, they stood very far away. They stood very far away. They were the bleacher bums. And this is a lesson to be taught, that why were they standing far away? Because they're very, very far away from being redeemed, for enjoying the redemption of the Jewish people. And at the time where the Jewish people would be redeemed, the Erev Rav, these multitudes, they will see the beauty and the honor that is bestowed upon the true Jews, the scholars and the Jews that kept the commandments and learned Torah, etc. And even if they will want to join in and be connected with these spiritual forces, it says in the Torah in the next verse, after they stood far away, no, there's going to be a hand, so to speak, that will keep them away. Keep them away. So they will not be mixed in with the Jewish people. And that's why it says in the Torah, the Jewish people will be alone. When will that day come? When they will be removed. When the multitudes, when it comes time for redemption, the multitudes, the Erev Rav, they will not be included. They will be very, very far away, just like they did not stand on Mount Sinai. For example, the Rambam writes in Igeret Teiman, he writes that if you ever come in contact with a person that does not believe in God, his feet did not stand on Mount Sinai. There could be a Jew that does 1,000,001 transgressions. That could be. But he believes. He believes there's a God in the world. That's fine. That person could very easily have stood on Mount Sinai. But a person that does not believe in Hashem, the Rambam writes clearly that his feet were never on Mount Sinai. So now they're joined not only by people that do not believe, but now they have company. Not only are they're not alone anymore. They have the Erev Rav, because these multitudes, they never stood on Mount Sinai. They were very, very far away. And when they want to come back and they see what's going on, they see that the Jewish people are about to be redeemed, all of a sudden they will wake up and want to give out and join us. They will not be allowed. A hand will come out to stop them. And they will not be allowed to come into the land of Israel. So those that are here will be tossed out, and those that want to come in from the outside, they will not be allowed here. So once again, the slogan of the campaign is that a Jew does not torture another Jew. And that is really, really true, as we saw, because only a person from the Erev Rav can torture a Jew. And therefore, the slogan is very, very deep if you understand the slogan to what it really should mean. Okay. About a week ago, the bunny came out of the hat, as we said. It was the wedding. Oh, they just pulled that one out. They took people's concentrations, their minds, their thoughts off of the torture that was going on. It was really a great move there. Beautiful. Houdini. Whew. Got this. We see people jumping up and down. I'm not getting into Did it happen? Did it not happen? Were there instigators? It's not really. It doesn't really interest me. I'm going to go on the avenue that it did happen. Okay, it did happen. And we're going to take it from there. So we see people are dancing in a wedding. They have toy machine guns in the air, and they're singing a biblical song about Samson, who's asking God and praying to God, please avenge my eye that they've taken out. The Philistines have taken out an eye. Please do vengeance against them for my other eye. And they were singing one of these biblical songs, and there was a picture or two of a family that was killed in a village, Arab village called Duma. And if I'm not mistaken, there were 2 adults and a child that happened to be in the house, and they went up in flames. So that's what we see. And the people of Israel, rabbis, and the lay people, just people freaking out. This is not Jewish, this is not Judaism, this is not Torah. I mean, we could stay here for a couple of days and give you all the great quotes, because there really are great, a lot of juicy kind of quotes. But before we get to that, I want to read a couple of things. I want to read who we're dealing with here. Okay, who are our enemy? Know your enemy, right? It's the famous slogan in Israel. Da et haoyev. Know your enemy. Because if you don't know your enemy, you can't beat your enemy. You got to know who he is. You got to know who he is. Okay, so let's see who we're dealing with here in the Holy Land. Let's look at the Arabs in the mirror, see who they are. Let's look at them, who they are. Past a couple of days ago, one of the Arab terrorists named Samir Kuntar, Yimach Shemo, may his memory be erased. He was blown away somewhere in Syria, Damascus somewhere. He was blown away. Now, already we have on, you can check it out yourselves, there's something called the so-called Palestinian, the website is a true website, but the word Palestinian, of course, is not a true word. It's a lie. But just for the sake of no, you could look it up, what I'm saying, because I'm only bringing a few. The Palestinian Media Watch, PMW, check it out. You could check it out. They bring in 15 statements of the leaders. Not somebody off the street, not somebody out of one of these refugee camps. The leaders of the PLO. You know those moderates? Those that have, the terrorists that have become moderates all of a sudden? And they call, if you look in their charter, call for the destruction of the state of Israel. Those guys, you know, those moderates. So let's look what the moderates say. Now, just understand Samir Kuntar Yimach Shemo, he was some 40 years ago, 30-something years ago, he, with another person, perpetrated an attack in Nahariya. He killed some members of the Haran family. One of them was a girl that was 4 years old, and her father. So, and there was a policeman, if I'm not mistaken, that was killed in the incident. Okay, so this person killed a child. Okay, so let's look at who we're dealing with here. Okay, as the good rabbi would say, this ain't the Middle West. It's not the Midwest here, it's the Middle East. Let's see who we're dealing with here. Okay, I hope I get these names right. Bassem Abu Sharif, member of the PLO legislative body. Samir is an heroic martyr. He's an heroic martyr. Yeah, he's an heroic martyr. Okay, let's go on. Azam al-Ahmad, in charge of the Fatah Central Committee. This was an heroic operation. What he did in Nahariya was an heroic operation. Adnan Al-Damri, spokesman of the PA security. Palestine loves you, Samir, as you loved it. Fourth, once again, there's 15. I'm just giving you 4. Secretary General of the PLF, he believed in the concept of resistance in his heroic operation in Nahariya. Resistance in his heroic operation in Nahariya. So we're dealing here with people that are heroes, are martyrs, heroes that kill, that go around and kill children. Next, on December 8th, this year, 4,000 dolls were confiscated at the Haifa port. They were supposed to be brought into the PA, the Arab areas in Israel. 4,000 dolls. Now, why is Israel confiscating 4,000 dolls? These are not your average dolls. This is not Barbie here. I don't know how many Barbie fans are you out yet. These are not Barbie dolls. These are special dolls that you wind it up, and they don't say Modeh Ani, or they don't say Shema Yisrael, or they don't say I love you, or mommy, or daddy. These dolls, 4,000 of these dolls, they throw rocks. You wind them up, and they throw rocks. These little dolls. That's really great. So these little babies, these little girls and boys, okay, this is the milk that they're nursing. This is the hatred that they're nursing against the Jewish people. They confiscated 4,000 of these dolls, rock-throwing dolls.
Where are they selling them? I want one.
Okay, next. Let's look at some more of the kids. These are the kids. This is what we're dealing with. Motsam Shabak. His face appears on his Facebook page on November 20th the past year. He has on his face, this is the father, he has his 4-year-old son with a knife and a kafiyah. And the picture's headline says, in order to stab the Zionists. Okay, so we have this father. He has on his Facebook page, he has a picture of his son who's 4 years old with a knife and a kafiyah ready to stab us, the Zionists. Okay, now there's a group amongst the Arabs. It's called, listen to this one, Jerusalem's Intifada Young People's Coalition. Right? Jerusalem's Intifada Young People's. Okay, now on November 12th, 2015, this year, we have a girl being filmed at this conference of the Jerusalem Intifada. She's a young girl. She looks to be about 4 or 5 years old. She's encouraging other Arabs to stab Jews. Okay, so we have another kid over here. Next, walk in here, Tawik Tarawi. He's a leader of the Central Committee of Fatah. He boasts about his 2-year-old son. Just asked him to buy a machine gun. Can you imagine that? Like usually you're ready, like your son asks you, hey Dad, can you buy me like, pizza, buy me like a candy bar, a Hershey bar, Milk Duds, or maybe some basketball cards. No, can you buy me a machine gun in order to defeat Israel? Tawfiq says, look at that, a boy who's not yet 3 years old, the head of the Central Committee of Fatah. Okay, now there's this Arab group that does surveys all over Israel. They're called the so-called Palestinian Public Opinion Poll. This is the opinion poll number 58. Okay, so they've done 58 so far. This is the 58th. Their margin of error is 3%. 3%, the margin of error. Okay, check this out. This just came out right now. This is right out of the oven. 60% of the Arab public support the use of knives in the current confrontation. Okay? One might say that these guys are the moderates. They're only using knives. You know, it could be worse. Machine guns, tanks, etc. Maybe they're moderates. 2/3, almost 70%, support the use of knives in the present confrontation. 2/3 believe that the present knife intifada will lead into an armed intifada, which 2/3 of the Arabs believe, which will serve the Arab interest in ways that negotiations will not. 2/3 of the Arab public, and once again 3% margin of error, 2/3 of the public believe that the way to be victorious against Israel, much more than political means, is, we would say, trickery, political trickery there, but whatever. They believe that this is much more effective against the Jews than using diplomacy. Okay? Next, there's a recent, it's worthwhile to check it out. There's this website, it's called Clarion Objective, if I'm not mistaken. Clarion Objective. They have an interesting new film out. It's called By the Numbers. Okay, it's not Sefer Bamidbar, but it's very interesting. They bring out some important numbers there, statistics to understand. Let me throw out a few. Some of them are Muslims in the world, still interesting, and their equation is very important to remember to understand what we're dealing with here in Israel. Okay, here it is. In the movement of Islam, there are 3 circles. There are 3 spheres of movements within Islam. There's 1.6 billion Muslims. Now, the first circle are the people, the jihadists themselves. These are the people that actually do the dirty work themselves. How many of them are there amongst the 1.6? So, according to this Pew research form, the following: the ISIS group has somewhere between 40,000 and 200,000 soldiers. Hamas has 30,000 soldiers. Hezbollah has 50,000 soldiers. Al-Qaeda has 100,000 soldiers. And the Iranian National Guard has 45,000 soldiers. Now, there's other groups. Okay, they don't have statistics on them. Okay, so that first circle is the terrorists themselves. Okay, and afterwards, the second circle. Okay, these people, they're not going to go and blow themselves up. They're not going to do it themselves. What do? They use all kinds of political, all kinds of cultural ways, ideological ways, in order to bring Islam to rule wherever they might be in the world. So they have the same exact beliefs as the terrorists that we mentioned before, except they have a different tactic how to reach the goal. So that's the second group. Third group, third circle, are what they call the fundamentalists. Now, they don't have a political agenda. They're not going out on the street, but their belief system is way out in left field. I'll give you an example. This question was asked amongst most Muslim territories in the world. Question was, what should be done with people the non-believers, people that don't believe, right? What do you do with people that don't believe, Christians, Jews? What should be done with them? In the Arab territories here in Israel, what they call the so-called PA territory, 60% agreed that they should be executed. Okay? 66% should be the apostates should be executed. Okay, so we have. It's always important to remember. Of course, not every Muslim is out there and shooting people up, etc. But when you're fighting a war, you're dealing with basically three spheres, three groups. You're dealing with the terrorists themselves, you're dealing with the political, ideological, cultural, which believe the same exact thing, it's giving them support, etc. And you're dealing with fundamentals that are a lot of them are very, very different than most Western thinking people. Okay, now, so back to Israel here. So just to understand what we're dealing with over here, we talked about the numbers. From December 4th to December 10th, over 200 attacks, 1 week, December 4th to 10th, over 200 attacks occurred in the land of Israel. When we say attacks, we're talking about riots, the Arabs rioting. We're talking about machine guns. We're talking about Molotovs. We're talking about rocks. We're talking about your car getting stoned. We're talking about injured. We're talking about Jewish dead. In 1 week, over 200 attacks. December 11th to December 17th, over 190 attacks against Jews. The week of December 18th to December 24th, over 180 attacks against the Jewish people. Now, you could check out, if you want to see each one of them, no problem. It's all written out. Go, it's in English also. Go to, there's a website, it's called Kol Yehudi, K-O-L, Yehudi, Y-E-H-U-D-I, and they have a list, exactly what date, what time of the day or night, and exactly a description of each of the attacks. All the numbers are accounted for. Check it out. Okay. Back to the wedding. Back to the wedding. The country Israel is riled up here, and they have tremendous amount of hate towards the settler community. How could they be celebrating? How could they be celebrating the death of a family, of an Arab family, also kids? So let's put the cards on the table and let's understand what's going on over here. And we're going to talk, it's called straight talk. Let's put it on the table here. Number one, let's get it clear that no one more than the Jewish people would prefer a millionfold that none of this would ever happen. When before Joshua comes into the land of Israel, he sends telegrams to the nations. There were 6 nations here, not 1. 6 that lived here. He sent them telegram. If you would like, we're coming in now. We're coming back to our land, our homeland, to the Holy Land. If you would like to, you're welcome to leave. You'll be blessed by God. There was 1 nation that left. If you would like to fight, then it's a fight. And it's a fight to the finish. If you wish to accept upon yourself the status of a resident stranger, I'm not going to get into details how that's done. You have to accept upon yourself certain commandments, a certain way of lifestyle. You're also welcome to stay. Of course, there's no Jew that would not prefer this a million times. Rav Kahana always spoke that we don't want to reach a position where we have to go and fight. We're not interested in doing that. We're interested in compensating them, giving them money, and having them leave. They're in our land. This is our homeland. This is what God has given to us. They're not allowed to be here unless they're interested in certain conditions, which most of them would not be. So we want to compensate them, not like they did to us when they threw us out of their countries. We didn't get 1 penny. We want to compensate them. So let it be clear, okay? But that's not the situation here. That's not the reality. The governments of Israel over the generations, they've put us in a situation where that's not the situation, that's not the reality. So now we're dealing with a nation that wants to destroy us. Are there good Arabs? Are there righteous? I'm sure there are. But that doesn't change. That doesn't change that when there's a war and they've come to us, they've declared war for the last 80 years, over 80 years, since the 1920s, they've declared war against the Jewish people. And when there's a war, there's a war. And in a war, there's laws. And the laws of wars of Jewish people, when it came to the nations that lived in the land of Israel, it was lo tichaye kol neshama. Kids, not kids, it didn't matter. Okay? Didn't matter. They are a danger to the Jewish people. They must leave here. They didn't want to leave. They've declared war against us. Suffer the consequences. It's not me. Don't come to me. Come to them. They're responsible for this. So you put me in a situation here where I have no choice. I have no choice but to fight or to be finished off over here. So think about this one, folks. When you're sitting at your house, think about this. Think about it, you're an 18-year-old or a 15-year-old or a 19-year-old, whatever, you're a youth. This is also true if you're an adult. But this wasn't the case here. It was teenagers that were dancing at the wedding, celebrating the downfall of 3 Arabs. So think about this one. Think about it, contemplate it for a long time. You grew up, these kids, they grew up in a country where a person is not sure when you go out to the store, you're not sure if you're going to come back. You're not sure exactly what's going to happen. It might be you're walking, you're not sure if you're going to come back, or if you're hitching, run over, or bombs, or knives, or if you're traveling, you don't know what's going to happen. Are you going to be stoned? How many people out there have been in a situation where you're driving, you're going 70, 50 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, whatever it might be, and your car gets, and there's glass. You know how frightening that is? You know what it is to live? You know what it is to grow up like that? Do you know what it is to have kids that are afraid that terrorists are going to come through their windows? The Arabs aren't afraid that someone's going to come through their window. So imagine growing up like that, where you're afraid of an attack, you're afraid of your life, you're not sure, are my parents gonna be with me when I grow up, or are they not going to be with me? And you grow up and you become a professional funeral goer. Yeah, you're professional. You know what it is. When I grew up, I don't remember ever going to a funeral. Till I was the age of 17. 17 and a half, growing up in America, I don't remember. People in Israel are professional funeral goers. Imagine that's how you grew up. Going to funeral after funeral. Imagine growing up where you're going from hospital to hospital to meet those that have been maimed. Those have been blinded, deaf. People are traumatized. People have no legs. People are crippled, paralyzed. Imagine that's how you grew up. Imagine growing up and on the way you lose your friends. You lost some of your friends. You lost some of your family members, some of your aunts or uncles or your parents or children. You lost some of them on the way. Imagine that you grow up and they throw you out of Gush Katif and destroy your life. They destroy your family life. How many families were destroyed, divorces, how many people had heart attacks, couldn't take it anymore. Growing up and they toss you out, the police come and the army come and they drag you by your hair. Or you try to build up the land of Israel on one of the hilltops to keep them Jewish. And then they come in, the army and the police, and they beat you up and they drag you out of the house. And what were you trying to do? build the land of Israel, put up a house in the land of Israel. How many Jewish babies, Jewish kids are no longer with us, and no one out there, I imagine, knows their name.